Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. If you've been with me before, if you just landed here, I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Taping this early Sunday morning. I usually check in with you all Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. I want to take a look at. Needless to say, Cankles is crashing out, as the young folks say now. Like he is in a serious meltdown over Bad Bunny being selected for the next NFL, the Super Bowl halftime show, especially in the wake of the Kendrick Lamar show last year. We remember what a stir that caused. Wow, how amazing it was. And so the NFL has upped the ante this year, with the selection of Bad Bunny. Also, giving credit where credit is due, owing to the NFL's contract with Live Nation, right? Live Nation slash Jay-Z. So all of this is very much in alignment with what they have agreed to do with bringing on the acts that they know are going to grow their franchise. And also, from what I understand, part of the reasoning behind selecting Bad Bunny is because the NFL wants to increase its international brand, right? So, because soccer internationally, the Latino version or the worldwide version of football is tremendous, simply tremendous. And the NFL has got their eye on that as well. But here's the thing, going back to Cankle, so he is fit to be tied. And the calls are already going out for the MAGA faithful to boycott the NFL. Do you see that happening? Like, on what planet do you see the MAGA faithful, the football over? I would say arguably over baseball, certainly over basketball and hockey or anything else. Like that's their domain, man. That's where they go. They have those tailgate parties. They live for that. So many people do, but you get my drift. So the call is going out, boycott the NFL. Like, okay, whatever. You've got Christy Nome hooping and hollering and screaming, well, then we're going to have ICE there and ICE is going to be all over it. Like to do what? Like how many undocumented immigrants or otherwise do you really think the tickets for the Super Bowl are we, in California, no less? Can you imagine, right? The cost of that. So, already people are, the sensible folk are saying, look, yeah, they might send ICE there. They're going to do something. That's just how they're wired. They're not going to sit back and be civil about this. But it said essentially look forward to turn out like a photo op. But here's what I want to look at you all regarding that. And I want to go to spirit is we have already seen that Cankles goes ballistic and has done so with ABC, CBS. Now we've got SNL, not just the NFL, but now moving on to SNL and NBC, right? So Bad Bunny was on SNL on its debut show for the new season last night. Did a fantastic job. For those of you who may not be familiar with Bad Bunny, it's worth checking him out because not only is he a multiple Grammy winning, Latin megastar, but he has also been a political voice. And he just came off of a wildly successful concert tour, didn't do it in the US. They're trying, the MAGA, Cankles and that whole faction, they're trying to paint it as some sort of, that radical left doesn't like the U.S. and they're not, they're your enemy. And basically what he did was he made a very tough decision not to do appearances here because he knows his fan base and he didn't want to have, to encourage incidents with ICE. So he made the tough call and still had a wildly successful show in Puerto Rico, like 30 something shows. So that said, I want to take a look and see if Cankles is going to go after NBC at this point and SNL as a show, like we've seen what happened with late night shows, if they're going to be able to hold the line because they have been incredibly successful in past seasons and certainly using comedy and using satire to address political issues. If they're going to be tamping that down or if they'll hold that up. But I want to take a look at that. Spirit, will we see a lawsuit or some sort of shifts in SNL and NBC as a result of this latest decision around the Super Bowl and SNL, how it is programmed. So at the bottom of the deck, I have the Emperor. Oh, and I'm not going to ignore this because it's another major arcana with the Magician. So NBC has decided to outwit Cankles on this. The Emperor is Cankles, in his whatever you do, if you do something to insult me, I'm gonna come after you. The just we already know it. We see it every day. But the Magician indicates that they are in talks to be very wise about how they continue, how they give leeway to their artists on SNL. Um, to do what they do. It is their brand. SNL, we know what that brand is, and we know how they've typically done, political content. So they don't want to change that, and they're not going to change that. Also, SNL is a major moneymaker for them, right? It's one of their most successful shows historically. I think it's going into its 50th season, if I'm not wrong about that. So they're already, and we've got the Page of Cups, right? They recognize that they want to keep it flowing. They also are recognizing this is a huge potential for them to grow their audience. SNL, again, just said it's been around for a really long time. A lot of, boomers like myself on down the line are longtime fans of the show, but they are looking at growing the show. And by featuring people like Bad Bunny and other artists like him, and by keeping its cast young, fresh, vibrant, and feeling like they have license to exercise, their rights as comedians, etc., to do good content. That's that Page of Cups energy. You all, he's mad. He is beyond mad, and you're gonna probably see some memes come out on Truth Social and whatever. But I'm not seeing any sort of whereas we have seen that retribution take hold and cost networks money like ABC and CBS, and they folded and they paid millions and millions of dollars. I'm not seeing NBC have to do this, and certainly not in relation to SNL. Am I right about that? Four of Coins. There are considerations that they're making about the risks that they're taking, meaning NBC execs. They understand the risks that they're taking with SNL, for instance, but they're also, this is a card where it's about stability. It's about holding on to what you have. And for them, they're saying, listen, this is one of our most successful shows. We are going to hold on to that success and try and grow it. So they're not going to be intimidated by his threats. And there's way, way, way too much money involved as it relates to the NFL. Spirit, I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Will there be a backlash by, will there be a boycott? Let me just ask that, because I don't see it. It's just such an incredibly popular sport. It is something that, especially in, with everything else going on, people are looking for, that's one of their outlets. There's one that's that's one thing that people can look forward to just sort of, walk away from all the other chaos, at least for a while, right? For a couple of hours. Spirit, will we see a boycott of the NFL by the conservative the MAGA movement specifically? Eight of Cups. Now, typically the Eight of Cups is an indication of walking away from something, but I feel like this is emotional detachment from Cankles. Am I right about that, Spirit? Is this Three of Wands? Yeah, walking away from him and saying, no, collectively, this is for us, and we're not going to let you use football, even if we're not happy about that, right? Even if ultimately we do have some feelings about a Latin artist appearing for the Super Bowl, similar to how they felt about Kendrick Lamar last year. Did not stop the ratings, right? Did not stop people from tuning in or attending the game. So that's the Three of Wands energy. It's simply something where there will be a faction of that movement that's going to have something to say about it. You're going to hear a lot of talk, a lot of hoopla, but it doesn't amount to anything. It does not amount to anything. The safety There we have the Knight of Wands. Exactly. They're still going to go for what they love. This is theirs. This doesn't belong to Cankles. This is theirs. All right. And I'll look, of course, I'll go back to this when we get closer to the Super Bowl in February. But, Spirit, will this be a successful and safe event? King of Swords. That's him. Wondering if he's going to appear. If he's going to, something tells me he's going to do something to try and draw attention to himself and make a broad statement. Spirit, is that what I'm seeing? The Five of Pentacles. I'm sorry, no. Five of Wands. I got drawn to that pentacle in the middle there, but those are candles. The Five of Wands. He's going to do something. I could see him. I think what Spirit is saying is look for Cankles to make an appearance perhaps at the Super Bowl, but simply to be an extension, a higher or more forceful extension of what Christy Nome has already promised, which is having ice all over it, she said, everywhere, she said. So, yes, I think he's going to try and make an appearance, but it's really all just... It's just bluster. That's the word Spirit just gave me. It's bluster. And we have the Eight of Pentacles, meaning I am in charge, but he's really not. Eight of Pentacles being an energy of mastery. He wants to appear to have some sort of impact on what happens at this game. And because he recognizes, he sees himself as having ownership over the manga base, ownership over what really happens in these types of forums like a Super Bowl, but he doesn't. He really doesn't. And also because I'm noticing it comes up in minor arcana energy. I just dropped a card. Hold on. It comes up in minor arcana energy. I'm not getting anything big, significant that comes out of it. A lot of bluster, you all, but at the end of the day, I get the drift that this is going to be extremely celebratory. And not only that, but it's going to open some doors if the Democrats can pay attention here and use this opportunity. Bad Bunny made the comment last night during his skit on his opening monologue on SNL, and he did it bilingual. He did part of it in English and then he went into Spanish, and he said, for those of you who don't understand what I just said, you got 4 months, meaning, until the Super Bowl. Really, really delightful energy I pick up from him. Really, really interesting energy. I think it's going to be very, very celebratory. And to the extent that at this point, everything is political and everything ties in politically, I think we're going to see a reaction by specifically Gen Z, right? And this can be really, really advantageous. Remembering, too, that time of year, February, is kicking us off into 2026, which is, promising to be quite a ride. All right, you all, I want to move on to the second thing Spirit led me to today is Chicago. I don't know if you all saw that image of that little, couldn't have been more than 2 years old, on the sidewalk in zip ties, that raid that took place in the south side of Chicago. Apparently all of those apartment buildings, doors broken down. You've heard the stories by now, but that image of that little baby standing out there on that sidewalk with his hands behind his back, and you don't see the officer. The image is kind of grainy. You don't see who the officer is, of course, so many of them are masked. But just the horror of that and the inhumanity of that, and also because we know that one of the residents who witnessed all of this said, the agents were like, "F those kids, who cares? F those kids." Now, Pritzker said when Cankles first started talking about going into Chicago, Pritzker said, "You do this, and I will do whatever I have to do unto the ends of the earth to prosecute any wrongs that are done, any kind of illegal actions, any kind of harm that is committed against citizens. I will do whatever is necessary to see that they are prosecuted. He promised that a couple of months ago when the talk started amping up about we're coming in there. Now we understand Pritzker has, in fact, in the wake of what happened with those kids in that building on the south side, he has directed. I'm just hearing state agencies in Chicago, Illinois state agencies, to investigate who those agencies are, the extent to which they have any footage or any details about, because we understand these people were, these residents were thrown into U-Hauls, and it was in the middle of the night where you wouldn't have had, people on the street with cameras, etc. Like it was really interesting and just sad, really, really sad to how they went about it. But I want to ask, will there be two things? One, I'm getting the impression that many supporters are turned off by this. Like it's gone too far. And images like that of that little baby standing out there in zip ties with this, that it's gone too far. Spirit has given me my Ace of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck after I shuffled you all. It's gone too far, and so this is really turning off a lot of his supporters, a lot of Cankles and companies. This administration, it's turning off a lot of their supporters. But in addition to that, Spirit, will we see any sort of accountability by the people who are out here, these so-called renegade agents that are out here? Temperance, it's going to take some time. Spirit is saying be patient. And also, the thank you, Spirit. The agent who, I can't remember where it was. Somebody will put it in the comments. Remember, I think it was last week or so where we saw that woman who was, I think it was in some courthouse, and the agent threw her on the floor. He tossed, just went off on her and threw her on the floor, like extremely physically aggressive with her. Now we understand that he was in fact let go as a result of his behavior, his actions. The Temperance card it's a card of alchemy, a card of change. Not going too far with that and saying that we're going to see some sort of easing up among agents, but to the extent that there's accountability. And we're going to have, governors like Pritzker and other blue states who are saying, we're not going to just lay down with this. We may not be able to stop you from coming in here. Although kudos to the court for making that ruling and postponing it in Portland. Loving it. But to the extent that this is happening and we have not been able to stop it, there will be a shift. You will have to make some changes. Now, we know in California, Newsom said, you're going to have to get rid of those masks. We need to see you. We need to see who you are. Now, I don't know. I haven't, maybe some of you know, I don't know the extent to which that's being upheld or that agents are cooperating with that. Doesn't even sound right? But there's going to be, that Temperance card feels like, and here we come with justice. Yes. Mwah. Thank you, Spirit. Yeah. Pritzker meant what he said. He said what he meant, and he meant what he said. And to the extent that they can find some sort of mechanism to track the agents that are doing this, and also remembering as well, we're hearing now that Cankles has ordered Pritzker to employ I believe it's the state's National Guard, if I'm not wrong, or to federalize the National Guard, 300 National Guard, to go ahead and take over in Chicago. I'm seeing that a couple of ways. Spirit is saying, on the one hand, you're not going to have the National Guard storming into a building in the middle of the night on the south side of Chicago to implement that sort of thing. And that could also be why Temperance showed up, you all, because it could mitigate some of these operations, I'll call it that, these middle of the night operations by ICE. That to have the National Guard there serves, on the one hand, the purpose of the administration that, see, we're doing it, we're fighting crime, blah blah, but at the same time, on some level, the way that these troops would operate would not be to that sort of horrific extent. All right. But yes, there will be some accountability. And Pritzker said what he meant, and he is. I don't know who these agencies are that he's charged with investigating what happened in that apartment building on the south side, but he is planning to see that through. All right. And the last thing I want to look at today, you all, is October 18th, the next No King's Day protest. We're seeing a lot of, especially in light of everything else that's going on with the pushback and with the risks that people are taking now, and the idea that what we're hearing and this misinformation is, if you do something like this, it automatically means you have become the enemy within, right? And so, but I'm not getting that that's going to have an impact on the turnout. People are simply at that point where they are going to take the risk. They are going to turn out. We know that organizations like the ACLU, they are offering trainings and trying to get as much information out to people so that people understand their rights. They understand how to perhaps de-escalate situations should they find themselves confronted. So there is a lot of, on the front end, there's a lot more preparation in terms of safety that's being done. All right. There is also, what I'm getting is, remember, part of what has happened on social media is anything relating, if you call something a protest, quote unquote protest, or 50501 or whatever, that the algorithms were being manipulated to not show the content, right? To limit or not show the content. So people got hip to that and got smart and started calling these events music festivals, right? It's a music festival. And in fact, there have been many gatherings around the country where people have in solidarity shown up, and in protest shown up at federal buildings, shown up in front of ICE agents, dancing and playing music and using that as music and dancing as a form of showing, getting their messaging across rather than the traditional protests. So I'm getting from spirit there's going to be more of that. You will see the protest move and grow as a movement. It will not be stopped, but you will also see different ways that people go about it to counter what they know is going to be the messaging around it, that it's threatening, that it's the radical enemy within that's trying to destroy any vestige of American, whatever. Not happening, not going to happen. Okay. But the other thing that I'm seeing and been hearing is there are a lot of people who, in anticipation of October 18th, No King's Day protests, because of the sheer numbers of people who are expected to turn out. We know the previous one during the summer was millions, millions. Even though major media didn't want to cover it, we saw the images. We know that how people turned out. It's going to happen again. But now we're hearing, because things have amped up in the subsequent months, we're hearing also comparisons or foreshadowing or fears around another Kent state, right? And we remember Kent State was a horrible and horrific showdown where there were people who were no longer there. I have to be careful about wording on the platform. There were people who were no longer there because they were protesting the Vietnam War at that time. This was back in 1970. But there are comparisons or ideas or things being floated out there that, when you have massive gatherings of people and with an increased pressure on these agents to do something about it, will we see something like that? And with more National Guard troops or the militarization of troops in cities. So I have the King of Swords who's come back. We know who that is. And I also appreciate the fact many times when I pull Cankles, I pull him as the Emperor. But when I pull him as the King of Swords, it's in his lower vibration. Major Arcana being standing in the office of, in the White House. Can't even say, I just don't, no, not president. But he's coming in a lower vibration. This man is being diminished by the day. His soul is being diminished. His vitality, his not even just dealing with the mental stuff, just his actual physical vitality is diminished. Like he's having a harder and harder time getting up out of bed. All right. The No King's Day protests. We have the Wheel of Fortune. It has to happen. Karma, destiny. This has to happen. There's no stopping it. The people will be heard, and the people will find reasons um, to organize, to continue to organize, and we will see more of this. I'm hearing periodically between now and next year. Like it's going to be a rhythm to it. They just gave me the word rhythm. There's going to be a rhythm to when these events take place. And it will grow because the people who are already there will bring more people. There's a community that builds as a result of this. In terms of backlash, we have the Chariot. There's no stopping this, you all. There's no stopping this, and people will overcome any obstacles, any hurdles, any fears, any disinformation. And I'm also just getting that again, but when they show up, it will not be with some rabid, but it will be more in love, more in acceptance, more almost celebratory in some instances. The signs are going to say what the signs say, but the Knight of Pentacles, exactly. Slow, not slow so much, but steady, solid. Solidarity. This is about solidarity, and it cannot be stopped. I don't see another Kent State thing happening, and I'm also being cautioned by Spirit. We have to be careful during this time in our expression, in our, what you focus on grows, right? And things become reality based on what you project. So there's some, and thank you. And as I'm saying that, I just pulled the Eight of Swords, fears, right? And multiplying fears. So be careful. This goes back to something Spirit's been saying basically all year. Be careful about the information that we consume. And I want to, I don't know if I need to apologize, but to the extent that I even brought that up in this reading, I did so because I want it, and I'm happy that it turned out the way that it did in the reading, which is Spirit tamping that down and saying, no, see this as a cause for celebration. It is protest, it is resistance, but it is also celebrating the solidarity among the people and how that solidarity is growing and is only going to continue to grow. All right, you all. I hope that was helpful. I do want to give a shout out and thank you to to the folks who turned out and hung out with me for a bit yesterday for the book club that we did on Kamala Harris's 107 days. It was amazing. Just a conversation. The talking about community, the representation across the board, different ages, different races, different ideas, and being able to show up and be authentic in a safe place. I really honor and I appreciate all of you for that. My soul was fed as a result of it. All right, you all have a good one. Take good care of yourself. I'll check back in with you probably on Wednesday, sticking to my schedule. I'll get on here tomorrow with a pick a card reading for the full moon in Aries. Fired up, ready to go. All right, you all. I'll talk to you soon. Remember, chin up, right? We don't bow down. Cheer up, chin up. Shoulders back, because when that chin goes up, it should almost be like a whoo, right? Chin up, shoulders back, and by all means, this is where the power lies. This is life, right? That heart, that is life, like for real, for real. So let's continue to extend that to one another, and certainly to those who are being impacted at extremely high levels right now, jobs, safety, etc. Keep our hearts going and extend our hearts to one another. All right, I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.